What a season it's been. The WNBA regular season is wrapping up today. It's Thursday, and I'm joined by who is a friend of the pod, a former guest, Brendan Glasheen. We're going to be talking all about this last day of matchups for the WNBA regular season, a deep dive into a team he knows very well, and I think you do too, the Connecticut Sun, before jumping into maybe some of our picks for the first round of WNBA playoffs. Locked On Women's Basketball starts right now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is a special episode, so thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial on another sport, NFL Sunday Ticket, something Brendan knows a lot about. From YouTube and YouTube TV, visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, guys. So like I said, we have a very special guest, someone who's been on before. He was talking about AU hoops back in the day when he joined Jackie Powell, but he is the play-by-play broadcaster for 4 years now for the Connecticut Sun. He also does play-by-play for the Maine Celtics. Like I said, he works for AU, CBS Sports. He's a host at Action Network, Action Podcast, so much more. The people you've worked with, the things you've done. Brendan, thank you. Thank you for coming on Locked On Women's Basketball yet again.
No problem. Happy to be here. It's a good time of year for the WNBA. We're coming down to the wire, but I think we're just getting started. This past Tuesday, this past Sunday for me personally has got me playoff ready to consume all the action like the rest of yourself and the rest of your listeners and viewers.
So you had mentioned that on your Twitter. I was doing a little deep dive. You said the last 4 minutes of the Sun Aces game was a playoff game, and maybe game of the year, which you weren't the only one to say that about. Man, how's your voice doing? I feel like this is a long season for you. There's a lot of great calls in there.
I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that game Tuesday against Minnesota. So we were just talking before we got started. We were in Vegas on Sunday, and I traveled 2 years ago. We had a chance to travel and follow the Sun. You want now with the charter flights, it's a little bit different, but you really get to see like what these women have to put themselves through as players to get game ready. And there I was Tuesday at the Mohegan going from one casino to another. I flew home from Vegas Monday night, and then I'm thinking to myself like, oh yeah, we got a game tomorrow. We got Minnesota on Tuesday. And knowing the stakes for the seeding purposes and knowing that these teams have historically played really tight games, I thought as that game wound down Tuesday, I'm thinking, Minnesota might pull away. Connecticut coming off that really tough, a grinder of a road trip, but then have a quick turnaround and play a high leverage game against Minnesota while the Lynx played in New York on Sunday. All they had to do was bust to Mohegan. This sets up pretty well for the Lynx. And then the Sun charge back. They make it a game. And yeah, that last 4 minutes when DeWanna Bonner got going, and then the offensive execution and that final minute was amazing. It was very similar to when they met in May and the game went to overtime. So really high level stuff from both of those teams, and we could very well see them play each other again in a semifinal if Chalk ends up delivering in the playoffs.
I wish I was there. And then the fact that it ended on that Bridget Carlton shot too. I mean, what's it like to call big moments like that? So she hits that shot, makes it 78-76. The Lynx end up winning it on the road. What's it like to just have that shot call? And did you see it coming?
No, and there was a video from the Lynx Twitter handle and their social medias on Instagram. Carlton broke down the play. Someone showed her the phone, and it was a inside look at how Bridget Carlton saw the play develop. And she had said the play was drawn up for Nafisa Collier, high post, baseline extended, to go make a play. And it's the epitome of what Collier's all about and how her energy, she's the head of the snake, but that team has played so unselfish all year. They don't really care who gets the shine, whether it be Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, Bridget Carlton, who's having a breakout year, Collier herself, go right down the line. And that was it was a heck of a shot. She didn't realize how deep it was. Admittedly, with so many fans that sit courtside now, they're all standing up. So I'm with Ashley Battle. And that last minute, I got out of my chair like 5 or 6 times. And she's like dying laughing, like looking at me like, you can't help yourself, can you? I got to be dialed in here. I'm trying to be locked into the moment. And heck of a shot. And Minnesota, at the end of the day, just made more plays. And the play before that, which kind of gets lost in the shuffle, was Stephanie White's out of timeout play, in which Alyssa Thomas caught the ball from DiJonai Carrington and throws a spear of a pass to Dewana Bonner on the weak side block for a layup. It was a heck of a play that ends up being forgotten because of Bridget Carlton's shot. And then, of course, the Sun had a chance with about 3 seconds left, and just a tough play for Bonner there, threw the ball out of bounds. But it was an amazing finish. And those kinds of moments when the game's tight, that gives you the juice and gives you the energy, even though you might be tired being in Vegas like 36 hours ago.
Is that why you had the sunglasses on? Little.
Oh, God. Well, just me and Ashley having some fun before the game, just kind of revving up the energy level. She's great. I love the people I work with the Sun. Our production crew does a fantastic job. But yeah, I mean, we like to have a little fun and keep it loose. But also, I think it's so important. When we did that Aces game Sunday, we were the road broadcast. But when you see something historic happen in such a young league, I think folks, like, I know there's been a lot of attention on the W this year, and I think some folks will think, well, it's been around since '97. That's been a minute. I'm like, not really. Not really. The NBA Finals were on tape delay in the 80s. And then in comes Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. Then you have this guy from North Carolina, and he ends up making a shoe, and all of a sudden NBC's like, yeah, we want all of those Chicago Bulls games, please. And then all of a sudden the wave begins where prioritizing live television for a live sport like basketball had not even reached its pinnacle until those 90s Bulls teams. So the WNBA in year 28, when there's only 12 teams, and this rookie class led by Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink had the catastrophic injury early in the year. The job for me, no matter where we are, whether we're local on NBC Sports Boston, if we have a simulcast on an Amazon Prime or an NBA TV or a CBS Sports Network, whatever it may be, like, we have to deliver to do right by the league. And then maybe someday, Gigi, when there's 30 teams and we have a strict audience of just Sun fans or whatever, pick a team, and you have a boatload of fans tuning into just your network, then maybe you can lean more into the homerisms and you can be more disappointed when a big shot like Carlton goes in. But knowing that when fans watch games, as of today, when they watch games and they watch the game on League Pass, they're getting our feed. So there's a responsibility to do right by the sport. And I've always been kind of wired that way anyway. Like, if someone makes a play, give proper due and rise up to that moment for that particular play. And at the end of the day, like, I still do games for the Sun, and I've never had an issue in terms of when moments like that happen for the opposition. I think you tip your cap. I'd rather, in my head, I'm like, I want to tip my cap as opposed to not deliver energy and be in a whiny mood or not give it proper due and pick apart why they didn't guard it well. I just don't think that does right by a great moment by a really great team like Minnesota.
Brendan, you hit the nail on the head for a concept that I think a lot of people don't understand deeply from a broadcast perspective, where you're prepping for games, but you're not just prepping for the team that you're used to seeing all year. You're seeing the Connecticut Sun playing all these great teams, but when the Connecticut Sun are going to Vegas to play Asia Wilson and her squad, making that moment as important as it is seems to you and to me as well, and I think to a lot of our listeners, seems like it's built into the job at that point.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. The shout out Tarika gave you for doing that specifically, because I think just distinguishing, all right, this moment is huge. We have to talk about it. This is 1,000 points. And for so many reasons, talking about it is so important because of how important the moment is itself. So I think your approach to it is amazing. And I want to get more insight into kind of what you're expecting out of the WNBA season to come. So listeners, please stay tuned after this. Brendan was a walking encyclopedia from what the short conversation I've had with him. So we're going to get more into it. So stay tuned to Locked On Women's Basketball after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Guys, you're listening to this, I'm going to a lot of Liberty home games, and don't worry, I've got you checked for what prices you could get. And you can only get these prices through the Game Time app for round 1 of playoffs that begins on Sunday. I love to go to live events. I will be at the Liberty game tomorrow. Every Liberty game I've been at has been amazing, and I'm going to find a way to be at a Connecticut Sun game, whether it's in playoffs or throughout the season next year. Game Time has so many great features and even has a Game Time Picks feature that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event, not just a sporting game, even if you want to go to a concert, it makes it even easier. So Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You could go see whatever round of the WNBA playoffs and know that you're getting the best deal and the best view. So for me, I look at these Liberty games coming up. Round 1, under $30. Round 2, semifinals under 100. Are you kidding? There's so many great features. I love the super deal feature. You can even get a seat view before you buy. Seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. And we want to thank you all for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. We're always rooting for women's basketball here, but there also is the men's basketball league. So for your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so Brendan, I've got you here with me. We talked a little bit about the Asia call. I mean, even the video of her speech that they so kindly shared with us afterwards, can you just walk us through that moment and what it was like in the arena? Because you knew as soon as she pulled up for a classic A'ja Wilson shot, this was 4,000. I heard you say that. I thought that was a beautiful way to present it. And then boom, she lands it, makes history. What was it like in the moment?
I think we knew at the end of 3, if our memory serves, she was 4 points away. And then as Ashley and I were doing the game, and as we talked about before we went on, we were very fortunate just based on a scheduling quirk that we were there as opposed to calling the game remotely. But we kind of knew. They kept showing on the Jumbotron the countdown. At one point,
game presentation there. I've never been to a game, but they're so notorious for it.
It was funny because I remember there was a point in the game early in the fourth quarter because A'ja didn't get to 4 away, or she didn't get to 2 away until like the final 3 or 4 minutes. You started thinking. I mean, at least I did. I'm like, is she gonna not get there? Because I think she was thinking about it, and hard not to when the crowd is clearly understanding of the moment. They have these little poster boards saying 1,000 on them. And then knowing that the Aces had a game on the road on Tuesday, she's bound to score 4 points on the road, right? So
right.
Ashley, talking through it with Ashley, and she's like, well, you want to get this tonight. You want to do it in front of the home crowd before you hit the road for Seattle, because you'll get there. And then you kind of lose that moment because she had the single season scoring record at Indiana. So that 1,000 point moment being there was great. At one point, Ashley sounded like Count from Sesame Street, the way she was counting the numbers down. We like to have fun. But anyway, we get to the moment, and she had scored on a face-up jumper to cut it to 2 away. And then the Sun had their next position. You can start to feel the crowd, and we're courtside. We're actually closest to Becky Hammond and the Aces sideline. That's where they put us. And then once the Sun had the ball the next possession, you started to feel it. Like, okay, whether the ball goes in for Connecticut or not, the ball's going to Asia the next possession. No questions asked. So Brianna Jones lays the ball in, and I look at Ashley and said, they're going to start getting up here, Ash. Like, here we go. And then what I was really proud of for our production crew, and again, Andy Bach is our producer. He's working with a whole new crew out in Vegas because that's just kind of how the model works as far as working the road games. When I went back and watched it, you can see folks in the stands starting to get up. They're getting their phones out, and the pop in the crowd is starting. And before the play develops, Jackie Young gets it to Asia at the high post. I'm thinking, I didn't script out a call or anything, but the minute she goes up, and if the ball goes in, call the play and then shut up and stop talking, because this place is going to absolutely lose its mind. And we didn't. Tarika posted the clip. That probably ran like 40 seconds. We didn't talk, I think, for another 25 after that, because as that clip cuts off, and I'll probably post it when I have the cleaner clip somewhere else, but I actually thought I was going to speak again after like another trip went down the floor, but then the crowd, as they're chanting and applauding, an MVP chant starts up.
Ooh.
So then again, in those moments, no matter what sport you're doing as a commentator, whether you're sideline color, play-by-play, you're like, there's nothing I can say right now that is better than this.
Yep.
And the MVP chant starts. Connecticut's got the ball. Ty Harris hits a 3. And then I could sense, okay, and also, again, the luxury of being on site. Becky's right there. They have players at the scorer's table ready to come into the game. The game's out of hand, so they're probably going to pull Asia and take her out of the game. So I could feel that coming. Said Harris drills the 3. Boom. Timeout, Becky Hammond. And then the sideline led by Chelsea Gray.
Naturally.
Warmer. And I think I said something to the effect of the sideline floods the MVP favorite. The first 1,000-point scorer in WNBA history is A'ja Wilson. And then boom, layout, and let the pictures, let the atmosphere take over there. Because again, after that, you kind of put some punch on it, deliver the sentence, and then there's nothing I could say or Ashley could say. Let the pictures do the talking. And the graphic, we had a little sidebar come out that said, WNBA record, first ever 1,000-point regular season in league history. And really cool moment. I almost choked up on the air because you could tell how much that mattered to Asia. That embrace with her teammates. And then you asked me about the locker room, and that just kind of solidifies what I thought in the moment. Like, that moment meant a lot to her and the kind of year she's had. And look, if A'ja Wilson didn't have this kind of year, she already has won 2 MVPs. They're back-to-back champions. She's a champion in college. She's got nothing else to prove, but she's only 28 years old. She still has so much left in the tank. Just the whole thing was really cool, and watching her talk after the game was powerful. And you can tell her energy is infectious, and that's what stands out to me, Gigi, when I watch clips, or we did the Aces game the previous Friday, and A'ja hit a huge jumper to put them up 1, and then Chelsea Gray hit the dagger 3, but I've heard Kelsey Plum speak. I've heard Alicia Clark speak. Chelsea Gray speak. Like, the first thing they say, Becky does it too, they talk about A'ja as the person.
Always.
And the basketball comes second. And then to see that embrace, team, fans, all of it, that all just spilled out everywhere. So it was really neat. Really, really cool moment. Really cool.
Beauty in the layout, letting the moment speak for itself. And if anybody listening to this hasn't ever heard A'ja Wilson speak, you're missing out. Watch the speech that she gives to her team, thanking them, not putting herself on the high horse. She's thanking them. And guys, she wrote a whole book about her life too. So you could listen to her for hours on repeat. And I actually recommend you do that. But you mentioned too, I mean, this doesn't happen without a team. You're kind of sorry to give this comparison. You're kind of like A'ja in that way. She won't let the moment be big for herself. She's always shouting out the team. And you mentioned this great team, graphics, producing, the other talent that you have, and Tarika, Ashley Battle, Megan McEwen, like you mentioned, coming up, Idona. Isis Young back in the past, all friends of the pod. So I'm just so happy to hear about this team. And I want to turn to the team that you cover. And I just want to ask you, in your opinion, there's many things I feel like I could go with this Connecticut Sun team. I love to talk about them. DiJonai Carrington.
Yeah.
Up for most improved player. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk a little bit about her? So 2023, she averaged 8.3 points, 2.9 rebounds, 1.3 assists. Defense always through the roof. And you probably know her stats this season way better than I do, but everything is up. And she's continuing to be a defensive presence. There's a couple plays I saw from the most recent game where I'm like, if DiJonai's not playing defense, they're not getting these transition buckets. That one transition bucket she got, I think it was a DiJonai got a steal, passed it to Alyssa, to AT. Then AT threads the needle like she does somehow every single time to find DiJonai. DiJonai down low, lays it up and in, flips on over, crowd goes wild. I feel like I've seen that play on repeat. It's just a beautiful transition bucket. And it seems like a lot of things just don't happen without her. So do you have an opinion about her for MIP, most improved player, at all?
I mean, she at the very, Bridget Carlton might have something to say about that after that shot, right? So, and I keep it real. I think DiJonai she's a competitor. We asked Stephanie White we ask her about DiJonai all the time because assimilating into a starting role this year, you mentioned her numbers in the running for sixth woman with Dana Evans and Alicia Clark last year. And then this has come out more recently, some more detail on her offseason. She didn't have a great offseason because she couldn't play. She had another knee surgery. She had another injury to her knee. So what does she do? She's dribbling with a lot of lack of movement to get better. And the crazy part about not having a real offseason for her was she's actually just continued to get better each game by game this year. So she's kind of revved it up as the year's gone on. Her fire on the defensive end of the floor. She's a big game player. Folks might remember when DiJonai played UConn I think it was the Elite Eight a couple years ago. Big game player at Baylor. Graduated early at Stanford. She's a sharp human being. She got up and she had a big game at the TD Garden when the Sun played at the Sparks at the TD Garden back in August. She fits their culture, which is you don't take plays off. You dig in on the defensive end of the floor. I remember her talking about leading into last year, 2023. Her goal was, I got to take less gambles on defense. Like I got to let the play kind of come to me and not jump ahead of my defender.
Wow.
Yet I feel like now having more professional games under her belt with starters minutes, and the key too with the most improved thing is it's one thing to go from bench player to starter, but not having to have left the starting five, because there have been moments now with Marina Mabry in the mix, and Stephanie White meant this as a compliment. Like DiJonai gave them so much spark off the bench last year that I think Stephanie White's concern was we're losing that with DiJonai starting. So credit to DiJonai for earning that, but then who's going to be that presence for us? As we know, they go out and get Mabry, and Marina's done a fantastic job. Really, her first time in 3 years being a reserve, a consistent reserve, and her scoring numbers are actually up as a reserve. Granted, a better team, I think, right, than Chicago. It's just kind of the fit and in the Sun need her shooting. I mean, that's what she's brought: shooting, facilitation, and she's an underrated defender because of her size at the guard position. She's a pain in the neck to guard, I think, for the other 11 teams. So back to DiJonai. Her heart's in the right place. She doesn't take plays off, competitor, and fits. She's almost like the daughter of Alyssa and DeWanna. She's learned how to become that savvy veteran. And the key to her game going into the year was, can you be consistent? And scoring's up, 3-point shooting's better, steals are up, blocks are up. So she's been a consistent presence, and they need that from her every night, especially now when we get into the postseason. They need DiJonai. It can't be one every 3 games where you're great. You've got to be consistent. And that's what we find out after each and every year now in this league. Like if you've got to have 5 to 7 players kind of clicking on all cylinders every night to be the team that takes the trophy in the end. And DiJonai is going to have to be that for them.
We're going to talk more about that trophy, who's going to be hoisting it. We're going to have a very quick third segment, but I love this breakdown so far. So guys, stick with us because we're actually going to get some of our picks in, a little bit more about the Connecticut Sun, but round 1 is coming up this weekend and we're going to talk through it all. And I think I told you guys there's some games happening tonight. So we want to shout out one of our sponsors for the show, and that's FanDuel. So if you want, check out FanDuel. Interesting, the Connecticut Sun are 13.5-point favorites over the Chicago Sky. And then if we're traveling across the league, there's a high-scoring game expected, 176.5 points for the Dallas Wings and the Las Vegas Aces. I'm excited to see how this closes out. It's the final day of regular season, and you've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot. It's America's #1 sportsbook. We'll have something a little different for you now through September 22nd, so act quick. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, so Brendan, I'm just so happy to have you here, and it's so great to hear a Connecticut Sun specific perspective because they're truly one of the most interesting teams in the league. They're 3rd in steals behind the Lynx and Storm. I think we've talked about why they're so good at steals. They average 8.2 steals. 2nd in second choice points speaks to that identity you were talking about, and they're just behind the Wings in that. Stephanie White as a coach, I feel like I could talk to her about her forever, but we want to get into a playoff preview right now. So it's kind of looking like the Sun are going to be playing the Fever, and this will be happening at home because the Sun will be in this 3 spot and Indiana Fever in the 6 spot. The Sun are 3-1 versus the Fever on the season. Real quick, we'll go through these all, but I don't even know if you could say this, but what are you expecting, at least, out of this matchup?
It sure looks that way because I think based on the injury report, the Aces are resting. They're resting Gray, Asia. Oh my gosh.
Young. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, they're all resting tomorrow. So they say. Right now, but
they say. It says doubtful officially on the injury report. So that to me reads as they are content with being the 4 seed and matching up with Seattle in the first round. So that would mean the Connecticut would be the 3 because Minnesota's the 2, New York's the 1. Look, the Fever are a different team than they were that first game of the year, which I had the luxury of being in the building. I didn't do the game. That was Ryan Rucco and Rebecca Lobo was up in the suite watching the game, and everyone's in the pop in the building, and a lot of question marks as far as how would it look for Caitlin Clark? How's it going to work with Kelsey Mitchell, who, by the way, was injured, was on a minutes restriction in that game. Look what she's turned into with a month of rest. Aaliyah, Nalissa Smith, Christy Sides took a lot of crap, and I felt really bad for her because I loved covering Fever games last year with Christy. I think Christy has injected some pulse and some energy, and it's hard to do. I mean, the last time the Indiana Fever were a playoff team, Kelsey Mitchell was not there, and Stephanie White was their coach. That puts it in perspective. Their pace has been exceptional. Their offensive execution has been exceptional. I have my doubts about their defense, and that's what could get them in trouble. However, they're playing a Connecticut team that prides itself on the defensive end of the floor. So the Fever can score. The Sun locked down on defense. The last game they played at the end of August was, I thought, that to me felt like a game that we might see for 3 if this thing goes 3.
Wow.
The way Caitlin has the way Caitlin has mentally slowed down and processed actions and rotations of defenses has been unbelievable. And Kelsey Mitchell has been the best 3-point shooter in the league. Maybe Ryan Howard has a case against that, but Mitchell's been electric. Lexi Hull has turned into a pocket corner 3-point shooter, knocking it down. They've found their rhythm. Again, my doubts are defensively. Connecticut is a team that also takes pride in scoring points off turnovers. They can get out and run. You mentioned the steals. Indiana wants to push the pace as well. But Connecticut, it's weird. Like, Connecticut ranks last in the league in pace. But when we talk to Stephanie all the time, she says, we're at our best when we use our defense to fuel our offense and we execute in transition. And that a lot of times is when Alyssa Thomas is the head of the snake and she gets to run in the open court and make the right play.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. It's Indiana's not your typical 6 seed. I mean, thinking back real quick, because I know you want to get to some other games. Go back to the 2021. That was my first year working in the league. Connecticut was 26-6, best record in the league. They were the 1 seed. Aces were the 2 seed. The finals ended up being a 5-6 matchup, Chicago and Phoenix. And no one saw that coming. And that was the same year where Candace Parker went to the Sky. They started 0-6. They weren't very good, and they found a way to the finals. Indiana Fever were 1-8, and that's not the same team. It's not the same team. And that credit is deserved across the board. To Clark, to Mitchell, Boston, Smith, Hull, Sides, and her staff, they are all clicking and have learned in a short amount of time how to play with one another. And that's why I think it's important to remind folks, like, it takes time. And I know a lot of the attention's about Caitlin, and I get that because she's captivating. Your eyes are glued to the TV. Like, let's give this poor woman a break. She's 22 years old playing pros for the first time ever, and it's new personnel. They're pros, but new personnel. And listen, like, a culture that has been fractured. They haven't won games until this year. They're a 500 team. Indiana has missed the playoffs the last 7 years.
Right.
Chelsea Mitchell's never been in the playoffs before, and she's a hell of a player. So they're playing playoff intensity level basketball. Fascinating series. I give the edge to Connecticut because of their experience being in the finals twice in the last 5 years, 5 straight semifinals. They know these moments. But man, if that series goes to a 3rd game at the Gamebridge Fieldhouse, oh boy. So if you're the Connecticut Sun, get it done in 2.
Get it done in 2.
So it'll be good. It'll be good. Be a good series.
That Clark Mitchell connection from 3 right now is so exciting. I'm very happy with these matchups. I think it's crazy that there's only going to be 2 teams in the end. And like I mentioned, this is the last day of the regular season. Dream are at the Liberty. They must win that. The Fever are at the Mystics. Sparks at Lynx. Your Sun are hosting the Sky. The Storm are at the Mercury tonight. Wings at Aces. So many great games to watch. And then we have playoffs coming up, guys. This was an incredible episode. Brendan, you have another day that's not a basketball momentous day coming up next week, but so hopefully you take some time off. But until then, where can people find your work and any games you might be calling coming soon?
Yeah, so for the local TV crews, our last game is tonight, Thursday night. Our last local telecast will be Sun Sky. It'll be myself, Megan McEwen, and Tarika Foster Brasby doing the game. And then, as you said, I'm getting married next week, so I'm hoping for Connecticut's sake, maybe New York. I went to Barclays last year for Mystics and Liberty, but I hope to get into the building. If they make a run to the semis, I hope to get in one of those buildings at some point during these playoffs. But and then we got ready for the winter with G League, some other stuff with the NBA, and I got a little bit of a grace period for the month of October. Then once we get to the end of that month, we're back on the saddle. So it's a bum this is over because I know we could keep going. But this was great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I feel like we could lock in another episode, every couple months or something. We'll give you the month of October off to enjoy the amazing moment. Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, check out Brendan, all his work, all the amazing calls he's made throughout the year. Stay tuned for that extended segment of Asia's 1,000th point. Maybe he'll post it on Twitter or IG. And thank you guys. It's a Thursday. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. Again, for your second listen, you might want to go listen about the men playing this sport. So go find Locked On NBA, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy last day of WNBA regular season. We wish Brendan great luck on his call tonight, and also great playoffs coming up. A lot of great games to watch. So thank you for listening, and Brendan, thank you yet again for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Talk soon.